Blood Moon, whereas for Gerard, he does have some awkwardness game one, but overall a solid control package. He's got a lot riding on the back of cards like Abrupt Decay, Mana Leak, Thought Season, Inquisition of Kozilek to try to pull apart Jeff's card advantage.
Another card to look out for in this matchup is Vidalcan Shackles, which Jeff's deck is packing 2 copies of. Gerard does have some answers for this card in Abrupt Decay and Maelstrom Pulse, but if Gerard can't get it off the table, it's very hard for Gerard to make progress in the game unless it involves Ashiok.
And as we've seen so often today, Gerard's going to start the game on a Inquisition of Kozilek. He'll get to see Jeff's hand, and we will get to see it laid out as well. So we see Tarmogoyf, Spreading Seas, Lightning Bolt, Mana Leak, Snapcaster Mage, and a pair of lands. Both an island and a Steam Vent. So no green mana just yet for that Tarmogoyf. Gerard kind of going to get to pick his way through this part.
And I think he's just going to be looking for stripping raw power out of Jeff's hand. Snapcaster Mage being the most notable there. Not a lot to pair with it now, but if the game's going to go on for a long time, Snapcaster Mage is the most powerful card here. Spreading Seas could be the pick if Gerard's hand is vulnerable to it, and Mana Leak if Gerard has something very powerful and proactive to push through.
And he'll go ahead and take the Tarmogoyf out of Jeff's hand. One of Jeff's really power plays for the early game.
Now keep in mind, taking Tarmogoyf here might signal that Gerard has more discard to pair up over the next couple of turns. We've seen him open up on multiple discard spells, so the sequencing is pretty important. He doesn't need to get Snapcaster Mage out of the hand just yet if he's going to set up another discard spell.
Yeah, and a great top deck for Jeff to rebuild from the discard spell. It's going to be his Serum Visions. He goes with his Island. And that should help him protect maybe some sort of payoff card from discard until the turn he needs it.
Yeah. But you can see Jeff having some of his inefficient tools for the matchup. A Boomerang was just drawn off of the Serum Visions. He has a Lightning Bolt, not really any targets in Gerard's deck besides Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, so Boomerang, the kind of card disadvantage, but tempo card, that's going to be the awkwardness in this game for Jeff to actually get full value off that. He'll need to Boomerang something like a Snapcaster Mage or maybe some other card advantage tool.
Yeah, he needs to get on the offensive here, which is tough to do. He doesn't have that many more creatures than Gerard has removal spells. Gerard also has cards like Mana Leak and Cryptic Command. And if Jeff wants to capitalize on cards like Boomerang, he's going to try to get out on the front foot.
Well, we'll see where Gerard goes from here. Turn 2, he's going to crack another fetch line. This one's for Breeding Pool. So Gerard being pretty aggressive with his own life points, maybe setting up for something like a Tarmogoyf of his own. And that's going to be exactly what it is. Tarmogoyf already have a pretty decent-sized sorcery creature and land in the graveyards. This is already a 3-4 and almost certain to become a 4-5 here.
Yeah, and this is not an easy card for Jeff's deck to get off the table. His removal is, red-based, or it's slower stuff, or he has to do backdoor things like Boomerang it and then counter on the way back. And now you can see why Gerard elected to take the Tarmogoyf out of his hand, trying to open up a path for his own Tarmogoyf and just run Jeff out of the game.
And pass over to Hoogland again. Does have that Spreading Seas available. He could try to cut Gerard off of black mana. Does take care of one of Gerard's basic lands. So if he pairs Spreading Seas with something like Blood Moon, he could take Gerard off all of the black mana for the game. And that'll be the play. Spreading Seas will turn that swamp into an island. The 2 of Spreading Seas, really kind of, that's really where you see this Blue Moon package going on.
Yeah, and Jeff has commented that the the mana denial package of Spreading Seas and Blood Moon has, on the balance, underperformed for him, but we have seen it have very good moments.
So on Gerard's side, it's going to be another Tarmogoyf, but no third land, and we've seen this a lot with Jeff Hoogland this tournament. His opponents getting down on lands early, and Jeff has been great at capitalizing on it all weekend.
His deck is very good at establishing forward momentum. Once he starts making his land drops and getting ahead of his opponent, things like Electrolyze into Cryptic Command into Snapcaster Mage and so on and so forth, very good on capitalizing on a mana advantage.
Third land into play for Hoogland. So he does have the mana advantage, but he does not have the board advantage. Right now, standing on a pair of 3/4s, he'll just pass the turn. I'll go back over to Gerard if he can maybe get another land. A pair of 3/4s do crash in, though. Jeff's down to 11. Maybe Gerard doesn't need more lands to get the job done.
I also think that Gerard is not really inclined to cast anything into the Mana Leak he knows about. With Snapcaster Mage in hand, he has to be very careful with how he times some of this stuff.
Yeah, Jeff's going to go for a Boomerang on instep. Gerard, though, will Mana Leak. And we're back to Jeff's main phase.
And I like the Mana Leak there. He just doesn't want to get into a counterspell battle with Jeff, so.
One thing about Boomerang, it does take up both of Jeff's blue mana to work here. And this is a situation you see Jeff really behind the ball. He's got at 11 life, but you have to think if you're Jeff, you're close to turning the corner. Gerard does not have very much mana. If you can take care of these Tarmogoyfs, the game, you're a pretty big favorite to pull ahead.
But taking care of these Tarmogoyfs is no trivial task for Jeff's deck. Again, his removal is all either burn-based or sort of weird backdoor workarounds, and he does not have a lot of time to cobble something together.
Now, Tarmogoyfs are now both 4/5s after that counter fight. This is a pretty fast clock. Almost certainly 2 turns will be lethal. See what Jeff can do. Snapcaster Mage, Lightning Bolt. He can't Bolt and Snapcast Bolt really either. He doesn't have any red yet. So instead he'll play Snapcaster and he will get Serum Visions.
And you can see he's in a position where he could try to set up Snapcaster Mage plus Boomerang, but that's not a long-term solution, so he needs to just dig for help with Serum Visions.
Yeah, his first draw off that Serum Visions was a Blood Moon. So maybe if he finds the ability to make Blood Moon, he could Blood Moon the board, and then the bounce spells become very good. Yeah. Steam Vents into play untapped for Jeff will put him down to 9. Really having to spend those life points aggressively.
Well, you can see now with Jeff playing the Steam Vents untapped, his plan is very obvious this turn. He's intending on blocking the Tarmogoyf and then bolting after the fact. If Gerard has a mana leak, it is a disaster for Jeff. But if you can get one of the Tarmogoyfs off the table, it's a pretty big win.
Yeah, Spreading Seas doing some work here. Actually, Gerard does have a copy of Abrupt Decay in his hand, but without black mana, he can't simply Abrupt Decay the Snapcaster.
Thoughtseize as well, so the Spreading Seas is doing some work here.
And Gerard's still in the land. He's going to pass, and this may be it. Jeff's moment to stabilize. See Breeding Pool for him here as well. If he has time, maybe he can slam down that Blood Moon.
And then Gerard is really cramped.
He would have to, if he wants to keep up that Lightning Bolt play, he'd have to shock himself to do it. He would get his life total very low. I know he actually has a fetch land, and that can make red mana if he plays Blood Moon.
Even if he's able to cobble together a trade with the first Tarmogoyf, there's still a question if he can do something about the second one.
Gerard just going to end step, flash in a 2/1 Snapcaster Mage. Nothing fancy there. And yeah, that alone will force mana leak out of Jeff.
And Jeff at this point can't really handle any more threats entering the table.
And it looks like a land finally here for Gerard. And it is Creeping Tar Pit, so a pretty important land indeed. That may force the issue on the Blood Moon.
I mean, if you're in Jeff's spot, there's so many cards that beat you from here once Gerard has green and black mana, Maelstrom, Pulse, Abrupt Decay, and so forth, that I think Jeff just has to slam down the Blood Moon this turn, because Gerard's hand's about to be unleashed, and Jeff can beat very little at this point.
It's not even certain he can beat the board.
Right. And with Gerard being able to just unlock his hand next turn, I don't think Jeff can afford to allow Gerard to go into next turn with all of his colored mana.
Another fetch line for Jeff. We'll see what he goes for here. It's going to be tapping 3. This probably looks like it is Blood Moon, and that it will be the play. So Gerard's board, Island, Mountain, Mountain. He does get to keep blue mana because of the Spreading Seas that Jeff played. But remember, that's the only swamp in Gerard's deck. So he will be out of black mana for the rest of this game, as his ways to remove the Spreading Seas are also black. And those Misty Rainforests can tap for red, so that Lightning Bolt play Jeff still has available.
Yep. Now Gerard's still in a holding pattern here, but he might get to a point soon where he's just got to attack, absorb the Lightning Bolt, and hope that Jeff just can't find an answer to the other Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, he may not have another line that he can do. We'll see.
Again, it's a little complicated, but down to an island and a bunch of mountains.
Oh, here come in the pair of Tarmogoyfs. Jeff's going to have to make the play. Blocks 1. Takes 4. Jeff goes down to 5. His hand right now is Lightning Bolt, land, land. So after this bolt, Jeff is running on empty.
Yeah. But a lot of big draws for Jeff here.
Yeah, he does still have his lands intact. Breeding Pool is not going to help, though. Passes back to Gerard. Gerard to draw for turn. That'll put Jeff down to 1. He has 1 more draw. A lot of control if he can answer this Tarmogoyf, but 3 more lands, and we are on to game 2. Gerard Fabiano getting the first one.
Yeah, very scary there, because if something happens to the Tarmogoyf, Gerard might just get locked out of the game, even with Jeff having very little action, trying to essentially just forest to be able to do anything, and even at that point, it might be too little too late.
Yeah, so go ahead and look into the sideboard of both players here. Let's go ahead and start with Jeff Hoogland. A lot of times when we've seen people play against Sultai, they try to board in the more powerful cards, the Haymakers. Jeff doesn't have particularly many of those.
No, he does not. He's got 2 Engineer Explosives, 2 Spell Kites, a Blood Moon, an Aether Spouts, 2 copies of Flash Freeze, 2 Magma Sprays, 3 Nature's Claims, a Negate, and a Vandal Blast. The Negate's pretty easy to bring in, Gerard with a variety of powerful spells, so that's fine. Past that, if Jeff really wants to hammer down on the Blood Moon plan, he has another copy he can bring in. Engineered Explosives is a pretty good catch-all for the matchup, even though there's a lot of overlapping mana costs. But as you mentioned, just not a lot to really bring in here.
Yeah, so you could see him go hard on the Blood Moon strategy, but just Gerard does seem to have a lot of answers to Blood Moon, even though that game he was choked on mana and couldn't deal with it.
Yeah, it's still a dangerous card for Gerard. As you can see, he can still win through it sometimes, but it's something that Gerard has to be very conscious of.
Over on Gerard's side of the board, he has some different options. We see Spellskite, Fulminator Mage, Sower of Temptation, Disfigure, Feed the Clan, Nature's Claim, Vendilion Click, Knight of Soul's Betrayal, Damnation, and Thoughtseize. The discard seemed to be pretty good for him last game, so he can up that with the Thoughtseize. Outside of that, what else do you like on his side?
I think that I like Vendilion Click in this matchup. There's a reasonable chance that Jeff just cuts his bolts because that's some of the least efficient tools in the matchup. And Vendilion Click's very powerful in matchups where it's just not getting eaten up by red removal. I think the Sower of Temptation and the Disfigures are on the borderline. I like the one Nature's Claim a lot as a way to blow up either Blood Moon or Vidalcan Shackles. I think Jeff's 2 most powerful cards in the matchup.
We'll see, yeah. So a lot of them staying closer to the game 1 plan. In these sort of fair matchups where neither deck's trying to combo, how much do you like Spellskite, I guess really on either side of the board?
Not really. In this kind of matchup, it's just absorbing a removal spell. I think Jeff is inclined to cut his lightning bolts in this matchup anyway, which is one of the more powerful things for Spellskite to be doing in the matchup. And on Gerard's side of the table, it does almost nothing.
Yeah, certainly Gerard adapting the control role in the matchup.
Yeah, I think Gerard's plan here is very similar to the ones he's incorporated against other mid-range strategies and other control strategies, which is just to outpower them. I think it's a good position to take in the matchup as well because Jeff is packing cards like Lightning Bolt, Boomerang, Vapor Snag, these sort of fidgety tools that are only good in very particular parts of the game. So if Gerard rather is just able to keep the board clean, draw step to draw step, he's just doing better stuff than Jeff is.
All right, we'll see whether or not that can happen. Jeff Hoogland will be on the play for game 2 as he is down a game. Remember the seeding in effect, so Gerard was able to get the die roll for the first game.
Another big problem in the matchup is Gerard's Tarmogoyfs are very challenging for Jeff to answer once they're outside of Lightning Bolt range. Jeff's Tarmogoyfs are fairly trivial for Gerard to answer.
Yeah, if you look at it, he does have 4 copies of Abrupt Decay, 1 Maelstrom Pulse, 2 copies of Damnation, as well as 2 copies of Cryptic Command to deal with those Tarmogoyfs.
You see some mirror matches where Tarmogoyf is the entire card that matters. It's just the biggest, baddest thing going on. You also see some matches where Tarmogoyf is pretty trivial to answer on both sides of the table. This is the rare one where both decks are Tarmogoyf decks, but the challenge for each of them is very different. Gerard equipped with Abrupt Decays and so forth, and Jeff has to slog through them, use 2 Lightning Bolts, or try to establish Vidalcan Shackles. It's much harder for him to answer Gerard's Tarmogoyfs than it is the other way around.
So without Tarmogoyfs to lean on, what win cons do exist for Jeff? Where's he going?
Well, he does have the Blood Moon Punk outs, and I think that's a fine plan here. Past that, he's got a lot of the same kind of game plan that Gerard has, which is to outgood stuff someone. He's got cards like Cryptic Command, Snapcaster Mage, Vendilion Click, Remand. I think he needs to be the aggressor in the matchup, but that's just going to be challenging to do.
Yeah, his good cards don't seem to be able to go toe-to-toe with Gerard's good cards, which means he may need to have some sort of more aggressive game plan, I would think, if he wants to compete.
Yeah, I don't know how much more he can really tilt it up. All the creatures are in the main deck. His deck just is what it is. He can steal games with Blood Moon and Vidalcan Shackles. We almost saw that happen in game 1, where if Jeff was able to cobble together just a bounce spell for Tarmogoyf, he probably takes that game over. But on the balance, I think it's going to be very hard for Jeff to win if he's not blocking Gerard out of the game in some weird way.
We'll see if he can do that this game. Underway, Jeff starts off with a turn 1 Scalding Tarn. Gerard will cast Serum Visions. And Jeff's going to go pretty aggressive, or a Spell Pierce on the Serum Visions.
Well, there's 2 things going on here. 1, his mana might be tied up. And 2, if his plan is to open up here with Tarmogoyf, well, now you have a land, an instant, and a sorcery in the graveyard. You can try to establish some early aggression here.
Yeah, it's interesting use to Spell Pierce a Serum Visions really says something about the matchup from Jeff's side. He's not going to go ahead and wait to try to protect his creatures with it. He's going to go ahead and try to aggressively go at Gerard's hand.
Yeah. And there's also just an issue of his mana may be tied up for the next couple turns. And the Spell Pierce it's got a short shelf life. If the game gets drawn out, Gerard's going to have a lot of mana to work with, and Spell Pierce may not be good forever. Jeff also has Snapcaster Mage in hand, so we might be able to establish Snapcaster plus Spell Pierce, backed up by Tarmogoyf. That could be a powerful opening.
Getting a 1-drop, 1-mana instant in the yard, certainly good for Snapcaster Mage. Instead, that does set up a turn 2, 3-4 Tarmogoyf for Jeff, so it's pretty sizable. So we go back over to Gerard. He'll play a second land and just pass. Because of Basic Island, Jeff does not have to have the fear of Abrupt Decay just yet. When we look at Gerard's hand, it's ready to go big. Maelstrom Pulse, Damnation, and Thrag Tusk among the things waiting for Jeff.
On top of that, the Misty Rainforest here can go get a forest, and Gerard can start having to worry less and less about Blood Moon.
Yeah, let's see turn 3 now back to Hoogland. It's going to be starting with Serum Visions. He is ahead on board at the moment, but can he hang on to it? That's going to be the challenge. We've seen before Gerard take aggro, get down to single-digit life totals, and then gain it all back with a Thrag Tusk once he hits 5.
Yeah, he's very good at playing this game plan of just trying to trade punch for a little while, keep his head above water, and eventually some very powerful 4 or 5 mana spell will show up to swing the entire game around, undo all the work of the other player.
Well, swing for 3 puts Gerard down to 17. He'll fetch on end step to 16. No second threat from Jeff just yet. We'll see Gerard may go for something like Maelstrom Pulse next turn.
Yeah,
as soon as available, it's going into a lot of open mana. I see Gerard fetching all his basics as soon as he can. Update on some of our other feature matches. Seth Manfield, Blue-Red Twins, takes game 1 over Todd Anderson.
Not a surprise, but I think that the matchup gets a lot better for Todd post-board.
Both players actually yesterday, when talking to them about it, do you feel like Todd is a slight favorite here?
I think that's strong, because I don't think Todd's matchup post-board is spectacular. I think it's good. But on the overall, I think it should be pretty close.
Yeah, there's the Overgrown Tomb for Fabiano. And in no fear of counter magic, he's going to attempt to pulse the Tarmogoyf. It does get hit with a remand. Gerard going to 14 for that play, so his life total will get a little low here. But as long as it doesn't get to 0, it's probably fine.
I'm interested to see how much reach did Jeff leave in the deck. To me, the bolts and the electrolyzes really stand out as inefficient cards. Gerard does not present a lot of targets, but if Jeff feels like he's the aggressor in the matchup and can't go long with Gerard, then you might see him leave the bolts in just to give himself some range.
And he's going to go ahead and Spreading Seas Gerard's basic forest. Picking that, interestingly, over the Overgrown Tomb, I think to address the situation where he gets to draw Blood Moon. He wants those basics.
It's a combo
gone.
deck.
Ugh. I suppose you can call it that way. Swing the Tarmogoyf will put Gerard down to 11, and then a Serum Visions post-combat.
A throwback to my old Smokestack land destruction deck. You go after the basics so Dust Bowl can play cleanup on the non-basics.
Oh.
Similar strategy.
The blow up all your lands combo, lovely.
Well, you got to blow up all of them, because if you leave them with some of them, it's not,
yeah, blowing up some of the lands is not, that's not good enough.
not a combo deck.
All right, back to Gerard, 4th land. Remember, he's building up toward that turn 5 Thrag Tusk. There is some things he has to do to clear the way, though. Maybe it's discard, maybe it's removal. He's got to be somewhat concerned that Thrag Tusk won't resolve. But if he can Inquisition or some way of clearing the path, he should be set.
We're hitting the stage of the game where Cryptic Command becomes a very powerful tool for Jeff. Gerard gets a lot of flexibility to play around it. If the Tarmogoyf's off the table, he can play a draw-go game. But there is some pressure to get off the Tarmogoyf, get it off the table this turn if he can, because once Jeff untaps, a lot of the other options don't work.
And he's actually going to go for Damnation as opposed to Maelstrom Pulse, which is just a mana cost consideration. With 1 green up, he'd know that both of them would resolve.
Yes.
And land 5 for Jeff. More island. See, a little threat light here on the Hoogland side. And he'll just have to pass. And that's a huge opening for Fabiano.
Yeah, I think Jeff is planning on sitting on Vendilion Click this turn and probably casting it at the end of Gerard's turn rather than going for Snapcaster Mage and something like Serum Visions.
On that note, I think Gerard also has a copy of Vendilion Click, so it will just simply be that kind of battle if Jeff makes the play. And he is not going to. He does have Snapcaster Mage. The draw for the turn there. Something else blue.
Boomerang.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I believe that is the boomerang. And end step Gerard will try for Vendilion Click.
And again, the boomerang indicative of some of the problems for Jeff in the matchup. He has to be the aggressor because he just draws less powerful cards as the game progresses than Gerard does.
Vendilion Click into play. We have Snapcaster Mage snapping the Remand to put Vendilion Click back in Jeff's hand. That's some card advantage right there. Looks like he draws another Snapcaster off it, so that may be enough to get him ahead. He has a threat. For Gerard, you see, just very calmly buying time here, down to 10, but winding up for that Thragtusk.
Yep, just using his life total as a resource here, trying to keep his head above water, but as long as he can do that from his side of the table, hopefully his card quality can take the day.
And he's gonna go, it looks like, for Fulminator Mage this turn. I like the way he sequences this. This puts Jeff in an awkward position. If Jeff lets it resolve, now he could play land 6 and maybe win some sort of counter war.
And also, I think Gerard's just happy to trade 1 for 1.
Just to block the 2-1.
Even Fulminator Mage for Snapcaster Mage. Not a good-looking trade, but as long as Gerard can keep exchanging like that, I think he's going to get to a favorable endgame position.
And for Jeff, it's going to be Serum Visions. Attempting to find more action. He does have one threat in Snapcaster Mage, but now that he has this, he needs to hold on to his lead. He's going to be looking for cards like Cryptic Command, perhaps Vidalcan Shackles, those late-game cards that can seal it up for him.
Yeah, he's got a couple. Fewer than Gerard, definitely, but his hand's pretty well stocked. I mean, he's got another Snapcaster, a Vendilion Click, a Vidalcan Shackles. Definitely some tools to work with here.
Flash Freeze, it looks like, as well. That was a pickup off Serum Visions. Card figures to be pretty good against the opponent trying to resolve a Thragtusk. And this is going to be the move from Jeff. It'll be Vidalcan Shackles, leaving up blue-blue. Can Gerard fight over this? It certainly is a card that would really hurt.
Well, the other side of it is that, Gerard has an easy out to the Vidalcan Shackles for now, which is sacrificing the Fulminator Mage or trying to trade with the Snapcaster Mage, and then just not casting creatures for a little while, and trying to fend off Jeff with removal and counter spells. So eventually something has to happen with this Vidalcan Shackles, but Gerard can hold off for a little while.
Yeah. Shackles will resolve, Snapcaster Mage will attack. Go over to Gerard's play. Looks like he has responses before blocks. He's gonna go ahead and fetch. Still has one basic left in his deck. It's in Basic Island. It's down to 9. Right now, no black mana open. So just making to play with blue and green. We'll see what Fabiano has in store. It's going to be that copy of Vendilion Click. He's going to put that one into play. Looks like trying to trade the Vendilion Click with the Snapcaster Mage instead. And Jeff will let that happen, and we get to see Jeff's hand. All right, Snapcaster Mage, Boomerang, Flash Freeze, Vendilion Click, all pretty good options.
I also think this play it's weird enough in the face of the Shackles that Gerard has some way to untap and kill the Shackles.
Yeah, well, he does have the Maelstrom Pulse, which Jeff remanded, so both players actually know about that.
Right.
I think Jeff wants to hang on to this because if Jeff's trying to protect the Shackles, this means that he has both Boomerang and Flash Freeze to protect it from Maelstrom Pulse. No matter what Gerard takes, the Shackles will survive here. He can always if Gerard doesn't go for Maelstrom Pulse, he can end step steal one of the creatures. And Vendilion Click will go ahead and trade away with Snapcaster Mage. And the turn will go back to Gerard.
And this is the other path that Gerard can take here, which is maybe save the Maelstrom Pulse for something else. Fulminator Mage, not a lot to be gained by trying to steal it, and Thragtusk just too big for the Vidalcan Shackles to take.
Yeah, Thragtusk is the play here. Gerard knows that he took the Flash Freeze. Can this stick? It depends on what card that Vendilion Click stole, but right now Thragtusk will land Gerard up to 14.
Yeah, Jeff was able to find Cryptic Command, very powerful card, but not an immediate answer to the Thragtusk.
Yep, right now, it looks like only 4 islands in play for Jeff. He has a Steam Vents. Or is that a Sulphur Falls?
Sulphur Falls, and in any case, Gerard can take away a non-basic at a moment's notice with the Fulminator Mage, so.
Okay, so he does. It is 2 more islands necessary if Jeff wants to steal that Thrag Tusk. Sulphur Falls, despite making blue, does not count toward those shackles. And Gerard will go ahead and then use Fulminator Mage to take out the Sulphur Falls. We have our first person into the top 4, however, in our other 4v5 match, Seth Manfield on Blue-Red Twin. He defeats Todd Anderson 2-0. Congratulations to him. He'll be awaiting the winner of Hugo Rodriguez and Jonathan Sakanek. Jeff passes turn, upkeep, go for Lightning Bolt on the Thrag Tusk. And actually the 3/3 Beast, that's something that Jeff can steal.
Yes. And even if something happens to the shackles, just Boomerang can then finish off the beast.
See whether Gerard wants to fight over it. He might. Jeff did not have another land to replace the one that was blown up. He does, however, have Cryptic Command up. Something that Gerard maybe expects. Hard to say.
I mean, he didn't have it when Jeff got clicked, but there's been a lot of looks at it since then.
And so far, the top 8 has been pretty favorable for Blue-Red Twin. In our 2 versus 7 matchup, it is Jeffrey Follinus defeating Elliot Jones. So his Blue-Red Twin deck takes down Black-White tokens 2-0. So both Jeffrey and Seth into the top 4.
So yeah, it looks like Gerard, no interest in fighting there.
Now has a 3/3. He'll go ahead and get to draw for the turn. And back over to Gerard. Both these players currently in the top 16 of our leaderboard. Both competitors at the Players' Championship last December.
And for Jeff, definitely a validation of all the work he's put in here on Modern.
Now Gerard, the Maelstrom Pulse will come out, is targeting Vidalcan Shackles. And as both players know, the Boomerang in Jeff's hand is going to get a chance to stop the Maelstrom Pulse.
Right, and Jeff, no interest in trying to use Cryptic Command here because it just opens up too many blowouts, especially Cryptic Command on the other side.
Gerard okay with letting that one happen. And now he's going to use an Inquisition of Kozilek to get what I would assume is the Vidalcan Shackles out of Jeff's hand. There are also options of Snapcaster Mage, however.
Yeah, Snapcaster is also quite potent, especially with the Cryptic Command here, but I think Shackles is the immediate issue.
Yeah, I suppose unless Gerard has an Abrupt Decay in hand, in which case he can afford to take something else. Snapcaster, Vendilion Click, and a Cryptic Command. Those are the 3 blue cards, and Gerard leaves all those in Jeff's hand. And the play for Jeff is going to be Vendilion Click. And he'll go ahead and click Gerard. He sees just Cryptic Command. Imagine he will take that one, and take it he does. So right now, Jeff with more card advantage, though Gerard with much liver top decks.
Though Snapcaster plus Cryptic as Jeff's leftovers is quite potent there. I think Jeff should have probably played the land before combat there, as that click could have just gotten hit with Mana Leak. That was Gerard's last card. It's possible Gerard's play sort of represented last turn when he was thinking about things and just his sequencing in general that the last card was Cryptic, but it feels like there's very little to be lost by playing the land ahead of time. And if the click gets hit with a Mana Leak there, it's not great.
You're back to Gerard's turn. Behind right now. Let's see if we can play a Beast Token. We'll go ahead and trade with Vendilion Click. That clears away the board. Really shows that commitment by Jeff to just settle in for the long game here.
Right. I mean, having Snapcaster and having Cryptic Command, quite potent to play the long game. The problem that I have here is
stuff like this.
Yeah, now this is happening. Jeff's back on the back foot. He might have to use his Cryptic Command just to try to get Tasker off the table. With the Snapcaster plus Boomerang in his graveyard, he already had an easy workaround for the Beast. So I don't like Jeff trading in that spot. I also think in general, he has to try to race in this matchup.
Gerard does have more Haymaker-style cards, like this Tassiger that's getting cast. So Gerard gets to make that one on 1 mana. And we'll see where he goes from here. Okay, he's actually going to just main phase activate this Tassiger. So options for Jeff looks like Abrupt Decay and Inquisition and Kozilek were milled. I believe a Thragtusk and a Vendilion Click.
On top of, I mean, the problem with all this now is even if Jeff is able to Cryptic Command and get the Tassiger off the table, it's trivial for Gerard to recast the Tassiger.
So many cards in the yard.
Right, he can cast it for 1 mana. He can wait until he has a discard spell or a counter spell to pair with it and set up a sequence where Tassiger gets back into play. And as we mentioned before, Jeff's deck not really good at handling these big creatures. His removal is just red base outside of his Vidalcan Shackles. He's already down one of those.
Jeff gives him the Inquisition of Kozilek. And looks like Jeff may just ambush Viper this Snapcaster into play before Gerard gets a chance.
Yeah, the last card in his hand is Cryptic Command, so there's really no reason to keep the Snapcaster.
And that's going to be the play. He's going to go ahead and crack a fetch land.
But I think when you have Cryptic Command in your hand, the goal has to be turn the match into a damage race as much as you possibly can.
Right, so Jeff's going to play Snapcaster and Snapcast that Lightning Bolt back at Gerard. Gerard's IOK sees a copy of Cryptic Command, and that actually does a lot of damage toward Tassiger. So next time Gerard activates Tassiger, Jeff can just give him the Inquisition of Kozilek again. It looks like Jeff getting somewhat aggressive here. Taps of 4 mana. Yeah, draw for the turn was Misty Rainforest. Go ahead and crack that one right away.
And I think at this point, Jeff just trying to Cryptic Command into something of substance. But Blood Moon's not affected. Gerard does have his 1 swamp.
Yeah, bounce and draw for Jeff. Puts Tassiger back in Fabiano's hand. I don't know, 11's a pretty big number. I'm not sure that this aggro plan is going to get far enough. He puts Gerard down to 9 with Snapcaster Mage and has an unknown in hand. And you see Gerard, not very rare. Look at this. On end step, just go ahead and fetching himself down to 8.
Yep. Well, 9 versus 8, pretty similar numbers when Lightning Bolt's the card you're concerned about. It does get a little bit fuzzy with perhaps Future Pain lands or getting hit by Snapcaster Mage or Electrolyze, but Gerard just looking to draw some substance here and willing to risk the point of damage. The other problem with the use of the Cryptic Command here is now Gerard gets to redeploy Tassiger. He gets to take care of cards like Inquisition out of his graveyard that don't do very much, so he can leave himself with nothing but substance.
Yeah, we see Delve the Inquisition away. Right now, Vendilion Click, Thragtusk, Abrupt Decay, Stone's Yard. Imagine you can just, he's not going to tell away the lands. It looks like he's going to leave all 3 of the cards in his graveyard.
Raise your hand to call for one.
And he'll right away activate Tassiger. Milling of 2. We see Snapcaster Mage and Compulsive Research.
Ooh.
So,
yeah, I mean, now you're starting to see Gerard's late game advantage start to establish itself.
and Jeff can pick which one he gets, but they're all pretty good. Abrupt Decay, Thragtusk, Snapcaster Mage, Compulsory Switches. Looks like it'll be Abrupt Decay given back to Gerard. Oh, actually, Abrupt Decay was left. He was given something else here. And with no damage on Jeff's side of the board, Gerard has free reign to start double activating this Tassiger and just stocking up on tons of cards.
Yeah, now the pressure's on Jeff too. I mean, he's got to find something like Vidalcan Shackles and hope that Gerard has no workaround or a Vendilion Click and try to punk him out, but
2 more Disfigure added to the graveyard.
winning this game straight up has now become impossible.
Jeff.
Gerard's resources are just too significant.
Yeah, Jeff will give him the Disfigure. Fairly clean answer to the Snapcaster Mage, considering it was bought for free. And Tassiger will swing. Jeff goes ahead and blocks. Maybe he has the Lightning Bolt, maybe he just blocks because now Disfigure has no target.
Yeah, not a lot to be gained there. by keeping the Snapcaster in play.
Was just a chump. And Jeff running out of resources.
Looking at Spreading Seas and I believe Flash Freeze.
Spreading Seas is the play here. Going to target more basics. So that's going to take care of another basic swamp from Gerard. And now Blood Moon is the play from Jeff. He did keep Gerard off that Abrupt Decay. This does stand to do a lot of damage. It would put Gerard onto just one island and then three islands and then a bunch of mountains.
But it does take a lot of the wind out of sails of Tassiger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because most of the spells just become uncastable.
So in response, Gerard's going to go ahead and activate Tassiger. Yeah, it should be safe for Jeff to just simply give Gerard things like Thragtusk at this point.
I mean, there's only the one forest, and that's already locked up by Spreading Seas.
And it's going to be Abrupt Decay given back to Gerard. Just as good. As long as he gives Gerard green spells, it should be just fine. Blood Moon hits the table. Gerard now just on blue spells for the rest of the game. I don't believe he has a colorless way to get this off the table. Nothing like, hey, you'll even Engineer Explosives wouldn't do it at this point. So can this 4-5 Tassiger finish the job?
It's not easy for Jet to remove. I mean, even with Gerard locked out spells, a 4-5 just might be too much for Jet to overcome.
Well, it's a lot like a Tarmogoyf when you get down to it. It's just a large vanilla creature that doesn't cost very much mana.
Also, a card that Gerard can still cast is Cryptic Command, and if he's found that, I don't know how much of a shot Jeff has.
Swing in for 4 from Gerard should knock Jeff down even farther. And Gerard just going down more activations of Tassiger. And this time Jeff actually has to give him Mana Leak, which is a pretty sizable prize for Gerard to get something that's, well, really anything that's castable.
Yeah, the game's dragged out, but, you know, Mana Leak is still better than another uncastable spell, so.
Here comes Tassiger. It's going to put Jeff down to 3 if he takes it. And he does. Looks like Jeff just has a Flash Freeze left in his hand. Which, when your opponent only has red and blue mana, I mean, I suppose he'll counter red spells if Gerard manages to find one of those. And Jeff, on his last draw, it's a copy of Spell Pierce, and that will do it. Gerard Fabiano, 2-0. He moves on to the top 4, defeating Jeff Hoogland, and his Sultai deck will continue on with a chance to make it through Twin, perhaps. For Jeff Hoogland, our last undefeated player, his Teamer Moon deck, quite a success on the weekend.
Yeah, very good tournament for Jeff. I think there in the second game, I was not that thrilled with his role assessment.